Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we started the last class we started the second chapter and we covered up till verse number 7. So this is the first section of the second chapter where we understand how Arjuna is so bewildered, so disturbed, and finally he surrenders to Krishna. So Arjuna is confused and he's totally undecided what to do. Krishna chastises him for his stance of non-violence. He calls him weak and non-Aryan. But Arjuna again argues that it is sinful to kill his superiors. He tells Krishna that you are Madhusudana. You have killed the demon Madhu, but you are asking me to kill my superiors, Bhishma and Drona. I don't want to become, Bhishma Sudana and Drona Sudana. So in the 5th verse, then we saw that he's ready to give up the fight and go for begging to maintain his body and soul together. And again, in the 6th verse, he's totally confused. Should he fight or should he go begging? Should he conquer or should he be conquered? And in the 7th verse, he finally surrenders to Krishna. So this is an important verse, and in the purport, Prabhupada has given us so many important messages, how important it is to approach a bona fide spiritual master, a spiritual master who is in the parampara. Why? Because the miseries of this world, they are uninvited. Even if we don't want them, they will attack us. We will be afflicted by misery, just like a forest fire. Forest fire is not started by somebody. It starts on its own. And then how is it put off? By the rain cloud, not by just one fire engine or 2 engines. Nobody can help it. Only a rain cloud can put off that fire. So similarly, these miseries of the material world, they can be put to an end by the mercy, the merciful cloud. Our spiritual master is like a cloud full of mercy. He is showering that mercy upon us. So by our spiritual master's mercy only, these miseries can be put to an end. So we should approach a spiritual master and we should inquire from him about the real problems of life, not the temporary problems about job, about children, and this benefit, that benefit. No. And there's a strong message that it's very compulsory, for everyone in the human body to approach a spiritual master and inquire about the purpose of human life, inquire about putting an end to these problems of life. Okay, and in the 3rd paragraph of the same verse, then Prabhupada explained nicely about, he differentiated between Kripana and Brahmana. So Kripana is a person who doesn't know how to use what he has, for the purpose it is meant. So Kripana is a person in the human body who doesn't know how to use this human body for the purpose it is meant for. And Brahmana is a person who knows it. So we did till verse number 7, and today we will continue from verse number 8. Verse number 8 on the screen. Nahi prapashyami mamapnyudyat yachokam uchoshanam indriyanam avapya bhumav asaptam radham rajyam suranam apichadityam. Someone please read the translation. And
can I read Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, go ahead please.
Translation. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Can I read further?
Yes, Mataji. Read the first paragraph of the purport, please.
Yeah, purport. Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problems without the help of the spiritual master, Lord Krishna. Then he could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna conscious is the bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, is a real spiritual master. Should I read further?
That's okay, Mataji. We'll talk about it first. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So here now, Arjuna is continuing. He has surrendered to Krishna, and he's still stating his situation, how confused and bewildered he is. So he's the word here, Rajyam Suranam. If you see word to word translation, Rajyam Suranam is kingdom of the demigods. So he's like, even if I get Rajyam Suranam, the kingdom of demigods, I will not be able to give up my grief. We have already done it. How he's placing his compassion, for his family and friends. If I lose them, I will not be happy, even if I get the kingdom of demigods. What to say of this kingdom on this planet? So the important principle here, now in the first paragraph of the purport we saw, Prabhupada is giving us important principle that if we get, paper money or gold or good job or all these material things, we believe that we will be happy, but that's not the case. The sentence here is academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Right? So we have to be convinced that the problems of this world, they cannot be solved by so-called material or economic advancement. Most of the people think, that if we do good economically, materially, then we will be good. If I have a lot of money, I have a good house, I have family, job, then apparently it's a comfortable life. But material nature, any moment can ask us to get out of here. And no one can stop it or avoid it. Whether one is rich or poor, that advancement will not help us in any way. The suffering of the birth, 9 months in a womb of mother, it's same for all. It's not comfortable for a rich person inside the womb of the mother with some extra facilities. And the latest example we again and again talk about it is this corona situation. This COVID infection is same for all. Death is same for all. It's not distinguishing between rich family and poor family. So the 4 real problems, what are they? Birth, disease, old age, and death. They remain as they are even after so much of scientific and technological advancements. They can't be countered by things like this. So therefore, what do we have to do? We have to consult a bona fide spiritual master how to get rid of these 4 problems. And who is a bona fide guru? Lord Chaitanya is telling us that. Kiba vipra kiba nyasi sudra kene naya yei Krishna tattva veda sei guru haya. I'm reading the verse after the first paragraph of the purport. Maybe somebody can read. Some other Mataji, you can continue reading. We will talk about it then. You can read the translation for this verse and the next paragraph also.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Yes, please start Mataji.
It does not matter whether a person is a Vipra, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in a lower family, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is a master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 8.128. So without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in the Vedic literature, Satkarmani puno vipro mantra tantra visharada avaishnavo gurur nasyad vaishnava swa acho guru. A scholarly Brahmana, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava or expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. But a person born in a family of lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or Krishna conscious. Padma Purana. The problems of material existence, birth, old age, disease, and death cannot be counteracted by the accumulation of wealth and economic development. In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed. Yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which consist the science of Krishna, through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. If economic development and material comforts could derive away one's lamentations for family, social, national, or international inabilities, then Arjuna would not have said that even an unrevealed kingdom on earth or supremacy like that of the demigods in the heavenly planets would be unable to derive away his lamentations. He should therefore refuse in Krishna consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy over the world can be finished at any moment by the casteism of material nature. Even elevation into a higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished at one stroke. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this. Krishne punyam martyalokam vishanti. When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lower status of life. Many politicians of the world have fallen down in that way. Such downfalls only consist more causes of lamentation. Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, sorry. Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna, as Arjuna is seeking to do. So Arjuna asked Krishna to solve his problem definitely, and that is the way of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So again, we learn now first of all about the bona fide spiritual master. So who is a bona fide spiritual master? It doesn't matter what type of a family he's born in, lower family, higher family, renounced order, or whatever, doesn't matter. He should be a master in the science of Krishna. After the second verse, if you see the translation, again same thing. A scholarly Brahmana, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava or expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. So just attaining the Vedic knowledge, learning to recite the shlokas and all that, that is not the qualification for becoming a bona fide spiritual master, a real spiritual master. But he has to become a Vaishnava, a Vishnu devotee, a Krishna devotee, who is expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. He keeps Krishna in the center of everything. He does everything for Krishna's satisfaction. So that is a Krishna devotee, a Vaishnava, a Vishnu devotee. So only if a person is like that, then he is fit to be a spiritual master. He has to be fully Krishna conscious. In the next paragraph, again, we just had already discussed about all this. So the problems of material existence cannot be solved by the economic development. And later on in the last paragraph, Prabhupada is giving the example of Arjuna, like here how he's not welcoming even the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of demigods. No, nothing can be superior than that. The developments we are having here, the facilities, the comforts we are having here on the planet Earth are no better than the comforts of the heavenly kingdom. But Arjuna is refuting that also. That is still a source of lamentation for him. It's not a source of peace and happiness for him. And what is the source of peace and happiness? the shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Right? And even if somebody go to moon planet, Prabhupada has given the example here. If we go on moon, we will be happy. People believe like that. But so far, people have maybe gone there, but nobody has been able to stay there. Why? Because nobody is qualified. So all this is simply, vain attempt. The only solution for all these problems is spiritual and not material. Even for the material problems, the solution has to be spiritual. Material solution is not enough for the material problems. If somebody goes to the heavenly planets, what happens? When the result of the pious activity is finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. So just, action, reaction, pious deeds, okay, go to the higher planets. When that is over, again come down here. But no freedom from the real problems of life, the four problems: birth, old age, death, and disease. That solution can be given only by the spiritual master, and that is a spiritual solution. Right? So heavenly planet and all these planets are still in the material world. We have to go beyond that. Verse number 9. Sanjaya uvacha evam uktva rishikesham gudakesha parantapa na yotsya iti govindam uktva tushinam babhuvaha. Who will read translation, Purport, please?
Sadi, should I read?
Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Translation. Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. Purport. Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. But Sanjaya disappointed him again by relating that Arjuna was competent to kill his enemies Parantapa. Although Arjuna was for the time being overwhelmed with the false grief and due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, as a disciple. This indicated that he would soon be free from the false lamentation resulting from family affection, and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization or Krishna consciousness, and would then surely fight. Thus, Dhritarashtra's joy would be frustrated, since Arjuna would be enlightened by Krishna and would fight to the end. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So here we see in the verse in the second line, Na yotsya iti govindam. Na yotsya, that I will not fight, Govinda. I shall not fight. And then what did he do? Uktva, after saying this, tushnim bahubah. He fell silent. And in the purport, Prabhupada is explaining, about the feelings of Dhritarashtra. He would have felt happy, understanding that Arjuna would give up the idea of fighting now and he would prefer begging. But Sanjaya has very smartly used the word Parantapa for Arjuna. Parantapa means one who is competent to kill his enemies. So he is not going to, let go the idea of fight that easily. He is Parantapa. This enemy of a false grief also, he will overcome and he will be ready to fight the enemies on the other side. Right? He'll be very soon free from the false lamentation, which has resulted from the family affection. Okay, moving on to verse number 10. 2.10. Tam uvacha rishikesha prasan eva bharata senyor ubhayor madhye vishidantam idam vacha. Yes, Vijayalakshmi Mataji, did you read already?
No, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Mataji.
Please read.
Yeah. Translation. O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. Purport. The talk was going on between intimate friends, namely the Rishikesha and the Gudakesha. As friends, both of them were on the same level, but one of them voluntarily became a student of the other. Krishna was smiling because a friend had chosen to become a disciple. As Lord of all, he is always in the superior position as the master of everyone, and yet the Lord agrees to be a friend, a son, or a lover for a devotee who wants him in such a role. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master, with gravity, as it is required. It appears the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies, so that all were benefited. So the talks of Bhagavad Gita are not for any particular person, society, or community, but they are for all, and friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So now again, Sanjaya is describing the scene at the battlefield to Dhritarashtra. So he's calling him a descendant of Bharata. He's talking to Dhritarashtra and addressing him that. So at that time, what happened now? He had surrendered and he had fell silent. Then Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, he spoke. Now from the next verse, Krishna will start speaking to Arjuna. He will start refuting his arguments one by one. So grief-stricken Arjuna. And how Krishna what is Krishna's response here? What is his reaction? Smiling. Prasanna eva Bharata. So why is Krishna smiling? Is he laughing at Arjuna's situation? No. I mean, if he was a friend can laugh at friend's situation. Oh, look at you. You are so brave and how you're behaving and all. But now Krishna has assumed the role of a spiritual master. So it's not apt, it's not proper for a spiritual master to laugh at his disciple. So that laugh is controlled now to just a smile, as if he was smiling. Prasanna, he was happy. So it can be other way, he was happy that he has taken the right decision and he has surrendered to Krishna. And the other thing is, he's smiling because now the friend-friend relationship that has changed to the relationship of a master, spiritual master, and a disciple. So they were intimate friends. And the names used here for both of them is the Rishikesha and Gudakesha again. Rishikesha, who can control the senses. So he will control the senses of Arjuna and he will bring him back to the right path. Okay, so Krishna was smiling, and then we understand about the sweet nature of the Supreme Lord, how he's ready to accept any role for the sake of his devotees out of love. He can be a friend, he can be son, lover, anything. And here, now he has become spiritual master. Earlier in the previous chapter, we saw how he's accepted the role of a driver, chariot driver. So he's ready to take any role for the sake of his devotees. And the last few lines, Prabhupada is again giving a takeaway for us here, that the message of Bhagavad Gita, it is open for all. If somebody say, Bhagavad Gita is a book of Hindus, no, it's nothing like that. If that was the case, if it was to be spoken to a particular person or a particular sect, Krishna would have not sang this Gita in the middle of the two armies, and thousands of people were present, not just an army of few people. On both the sides, so many warriors were there, and right in the middle of them, Krishna sang this Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna openly. So everybody is welcome to read and understand and apply this Bhagavad Gita in their life. Why? Because it's not an ordinary book. It's a life manual. All the humans are meant, they are supposed to read this Bhagavad Gita. It's a life manual. Okay, so it was an open exchange between Arjuna and Krishna in the middle of the two armies. He didn't take Arjuna in a corner and whispered all the messages in his ear. No. So it's open for all of us. Okay, so that ends the first section about how Arjuna surrendered to Krishna. And now Krishna will start speaking from verse number 11. So from verse number 11 till verse number 30, we have the second section of this chapter where Krishna will defute the compassion argument of Arjuna, how he was placing his compassion for his family and friends, for his relatives. So the yoga, the knowledge which Krishna is going to give in this section is Jnana Yoga, or it's also known as Sankhya Yoga. Okay, Sankhya means analytical study of matter and spirit. So in this section, Krishna will be teaching to Arjuna about the difference between the matter and the spirit. What is matter? The body, material body. And spirit is the spirit soul. So he will give him gyan about this matter, and I mean the body and the soul, or matter and the spirit. And it's also known as Sankhya Yoga. Okay, so verse number 11. Ashocyan anvashocastvam pragyavadam cha bhashase gatasun agatasumscha nanu shochanti pandita. Manish Prabhu, you want to read?
Okay, Mataji.
Can you read,
Translation.
Mataji?
Mataji, Prabhuji is reading. Next time maybe. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah. The Supreme Person translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not the worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Purport. The Lord at once took the position of the teacher and chastised the student, calling him indirectly a fool. The Lord said, you are talking like a learned man, but you do not know that one who is learned, one who knows what is body and what is soul, does not lament for any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition. As explained in later chapters, it will be clear that knowledge means to know matter and spirit and the controller of both. Arjuna argued that religious principles should be given more importance than politics or sociology, but he did not know that knowledge of matter, soul, and the supreme is even more important than religious formularies. And because he was lacking in that knowledge, he should not have posed himself as a very learned man. As he did not happen to be a very learned man, he was consequently lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows this is actually learned, and for him there is no cause for lamentation, regardless of the condition of the material body. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So in this verse, again, we see how Krishna is chastising Arjuna. In the verse number 2, when Krishna spoke for the first time, he called him non-Aryan and he started chastising him. And again, now he has started doing the same. And what is he calling him? In the purport also, Prabhupada is explaining that he's calling him indirectly a fool. Krishna is telling him, you are speaking as if very learned. Pragyavadam cha bhashase. Pragyavadam is learned words. If you see the word to word meaning, learned talks, pragyavadam. Bhasha says speaking. So you are speaking as if you are very learned, but you are lamenting for what is not worthy of lamenting. Wise person don't lament like that. So indirectly, he's telling Arjuna that you are not wise, you are a fool. And then what is real knowledge? Who is the real learned person? Prabhupada is telling in the purport, somewhere in the middle, if you see, knowledge means to know matter and spirit and the controller of both. That is the real knowledge. When we know the difference between matter, spirit, and the controller who is above both of them. But Arjuna is simply posing to be a learned man. He is not really learned. He was lacking in that knowledge. So he should not have posed himself as very learned man. He was consequently lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The last few lines of this purport, the body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows this, that person is actually learned. So what is real knowledge? Who is a real learned person? Prabhupada is explaining it in the purport very nicely. We should know the difference between the body and soul. We should know about their nature. We should know about their destiny and the person who is above both of them. Okay, verse number 12. Moving on to verse number 12. Na tve aham jatu nasam, na tvam neme janadhipa, na chevna bhavishyama, sarve vayam atah param.
Translation.
Please.
There was never a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these things, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Purport. By His grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the Vedas, in the Katha Upanishad, as well as in the Shvetaswara Upanishad, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer of innumerable living entities. In terms of their different situation according to individual work and reaction of work, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also, by its plenary portion, alive in the heart of every living entity. Only saintly person who can see within and without the same Supreme Lord can actually attain to perfect and eternal peace. Nityo nityanam chetnas chetnanam eko buddhanam yo dhanti kamanam tam atmanam stham ye anupastityanti dheras tesham santi saswati netrasam. Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. The same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned, but actually have but a poor fund of knowledge. The Lord says clearly that he himself, Arjuna, and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual beings, and that the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the living, individual living entities, both in the condition and in the liberated situations. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme individual person, and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individual in the past, or it is not that they will not remain eternal persons. Their individuality existed in the past, and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. The Mayavati.
Continue, Prabhuji. Yeah.
The Mayavati theory that after liberation, the individual soul, separated by the covering of Maya or illusion, will merge into the impersonal Brahman and lose its individual existence is not supported herein by Lord Krishna. The supreme authority, nor is the theory that we only think of individuality in the conditioned state supported herein. Krishna clearly says herein that in the future also the individuality of the Lord and the others, as it is confirmed in the Upanishads, will continue eternally. This statement of Krishna's is authoritative because Krishna cannot be subjected to individuality. If individuality were not a fact, then Krishna would not have stated it so much, even for the future. The Mayavadi may argue that the individuality spoken by the Krishna is not spiritual but material. Even accepting the argument that individuality is material, then how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? Krishna affirmed his individuality in the past and confirmed his individuality in the future also. He has confirmed his individuality in many ways, and impersonal Brahman has been declared to be subordinate to him. Krishna has maintained spiritual individuality all along. If he is accepted as an ordinary conditioned soul in individual consciousness, then his Bhagavad Gita has no value as authoritative scripture. A common man with all the four defects of human reality is unable to teach that which is worth hearing. The Gita is above such literature. No mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses all importance. The Mayavadi argues that the plurality mentioned in this verse is conventional and that is referred to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. After condemning the bodily conception of the living entity, how was it possible for Krishna to place a conventional proposition on the body again? Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual ground and is thus confirmed by great acharyas like Sri Ramanujacharya and others. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita that this spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. Those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. The non-devotee's approach to the teaching of Gita is something like that of a bee licking on the bottle of honey. One cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens the bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of the Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees, and no one else can taste it. As it is stated in the 4th chapter of the book, nor can the Gita be touched by a person who envy the very existence of the Lord. Therefore, the Mayavadi's explanation of the Gita is a most misleading presentation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentation made by the Mayavadis and warned that one who takes to such an understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of the Gita. If individuality refers to the empirical universe, then there is no need of teaching by the Lord. The plurality of the individual soul and the Lord is an eternal fact, and it is confirmed by the Vedas as above mentioned.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhupada. So it's a long purport, but Prabhupada here is explaining very well. He's establishing the two principles of eternality and individuality of each jiva, each living entity. What is in the past also we existed individually, separately. Now also we exist separately, and in future also we will exist individually. Krishna is not saying here that in the past we were one, and now we have become individuals, and in the future again we all will become one. No. Very clearly he's telling about the individuality of each soul, each jiva. And in the second paragraph of the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he is saying, this verse very clearly defeats Mayavad. Now, what is Mayavad? And we should know how to defeat Mayavad. Srila Prabhupada, in his various books, he has talked elaborately about Mayavad. So, just in brief, in a few sentences only, we should at least understand what is Mayavad. So, Mayavad people, of course, this philosophy is propounded by Shankaracharya, and this establishes that the supreme absolute truth is impersonal. It doesn't have any personality. Is impersonal. And they say that material world is illusion. It's not real, it's illusion. They say Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. Only Brahman, the impersonal Jyoti, that is Satya, that is the truth, and this Jagat is Mithya. Material world is illusion, and being in this material world is also illusion. But the fact is, except for their philosophy, everything is not illusion. Their philosophy is only illusion. They say jivas come from Supreme Brahman. The Supreme Brahman is only one. It's just one individual. From him, the jivas, they separate and they come down here in the material world. And they are put in illusory conditions. But once they are liberated, they will again merge with that impersonal Brahman, and they will become God. They will all become God. And Srila Prabhupada is refuting all this. Why? Because previously, Prabhupada is just trying to say that previously everyone was only a lump, and now divided into individual jivas, and then again they merge into one impersonal lump. We don't understand that from Krishna's words here. They may say that individuality is not spiritual and only material on bodily platform. Spiritually, when we are the spirit souls only, then we are not individuals. It's not, we are all just one. Only when we attain the material body, then we become individuals. That means as bodies, we are separate, but as spirit soul, we merge. They could argue like that also. Mayavadis, they do. But Prabhupada, again, he's giving various reasons here. What is he saying? The first reason he's telling, but Krishna has already defeated the bodily concept in the previous verse. He said that, we don't have to talk about that. While speaking, learners, you're mourning for what is not worthy. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So he's talking about the body there. The body lives and it dies. You don't have to lament for the soul which doesn't live, which doesn't just come and then it dies. It's eternal. So Krishna has already defeated the bodily concept in the previous verse. So why will he again talk about the body here? So here he's not talking about individuality of the body. He's talking about the individuality of the soul. And another question here, they're saying that, how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? If he is just one and we merge into him, he's not different from us. So if they say that Krishna is also like us only, ordinary jiva, no difference between him and the jivas, we all are one, then what's the authority of Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is then just any ordinary book written by a mundane person. And a mundane person is affected by the 4 defects. What are those 4 defects? A human being, a normal person, he's affected by, he has tendency to cheat, he has tendency to commit mistakes, he has imperfect senses, and his illusion. These are the 4 defects of any ordinary person. If Krishna is also an ordinary person, then he will be affected by these 4 defects. Then how will Bhagavad Gita be special? How it will, be a universal book for times to come? People still study it, and this message is the same, and it works out for all of us, all around, for all times. Why? Because it's spoken by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not any ordinary person. So there is difference between Krishna and the other jivas. Krishna is not just one with us. We are his part and parcels. We have come here, and we are separated from him. And then who doesn't understand the real message? The envious people. Towards the end of the purport, Prabhupada tells those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they don't get the real message. Their understanding is just like bee licking on a bottle of honey, not opening the lid of the honey bottle and tasting the honey, but just licking the bottle from the outside. What taste will they get? So similarly, these people, they don't get the proper understanding, the proper taste of the knowledge of the love of Krishna. No one can taste it. It's stated in 4th chapter of the book also. Later on we will read. So Bhagavad Gita, that's why, it's further we will read. It's an open secret. How can it be a secret if it is open? Because it's open, it's available for everybody. But it's a secret because it can be understood only by devotees. Those who are not envious of Krishna, who understand the position of Krishna and respect him according to that position. So only those people can understand Bhagavad Gita. So again, the key point from this verse is the plurality of the individual soul and the Lord is eternal. It's always. We all are separate. We were individuals in the past, now, and in future also. And we are all eternal. For all times, we are like that. We are all separate. We are all individuals. Moving on to verse number 13. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantar praptir dhiras tatra na muhyati. It's a very famous verse. Who would want to read the translation and purport? Barnali Mataji. Okay, Mataji.
Okay. And translation. As the embodied soul continuously passes his body from beyond boyhood to youth to old age, and the soul similarly passes into another body at death, as a sober person is not bewildered by such change. Purport. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting something sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. The individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates into another body. And since it is so sure to have another body at the next birth, either material or spiritual, there is no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for them, their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering according to one's walk in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in their next life, or at least life in heavenly bodies, so for superior enjoyment. of superior enjoyment of material existence. So in either case, there was no cause for lamentation. Any man who has, should I continue, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, complete it, please.
Okay. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of of the individual soul, the super soul, and the nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavati theory of enemies of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground of that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable, or make the supreme cleavable, or Mataji, could you please scroll up?
Prabhuji, could you scroll up, please? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Make the supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of supreme souls being unchangeable, as confirmed in the Gita. The fragmental portions of the supreme exist only eternally, sanatana, and are called shada. That is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of Godhead. Theory of reflection can be applied to the super soul, which is present in each and every individual body and is known as the Paramatma. He is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in the water, the reflections both the sun and the moon and the stars. The stars can be compared to the living entities, and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. They are not on the same level, as it will be apparent in the beginning of the 4th chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna, and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then the relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. In both of them, if both of them are deluded by the illusory energy, Maya, and then there is no need of one being the instructor and other the instructed. Such instruction should be useless, because in the clutches of Maya, no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, the superior in position to the living entity. Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul, deluded by the Maya. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So as I told earlier, it's a very famous verse, and here Krishna is giving a very important message. What is he saying? That even in this life, the soul is changing body. The embodied soul continuously passes. The soul, which is embodied, the soul is, Deha is the body, and Dehi, Na, is the embodied, that's the soul. It continuously passes from the body of a child to the body of a youth, and then to an old body, and after death, then it passes on to another body, a new body, right? And this change, it doesn't happen only when a person is born. This change starts right from the womb of mother. The body is transforming there, the body is growing, it's changing. So right from there, this change starts taking place. But this change is not very clear to be seen by us, in the gross sense. We can't see how the body is growing day by day. It's imperceptible. Only after some long time, when we see somebody, we realize, oh, this person has changed so much. So now what happens? The body is changing from, right from the womb of the mother. But what is not changing? Why do we have a sense of identity, that this is my body? Oh, we keep taking photographs. It's so common now with these smartphones and all. Why do people take the photographs? Because this body keeps changing and they are fearful that this body will go away. The body I have now, after some days, it will not be the same. And we see our previous old pictures and we feel so happy, we are delighted, and we see how young and energetic we were and all that. So we have all this for our memories. Why? Because the body is changing, but the soul is not changing. It's moving from one body to another. That is why we have a sense of identity. This is me when I was young. This is me when I was in college. This is me, some years back. So why do we have that? Because that me is the same. The me is just passing from one body to another. There is something common between all those stages, right? And what is that something common? That is the soul. That's the spirit soul. That's the me. I am the soul. I am just passing from one body to another body. That's why I can relate to that body. Right? And Srila Prabhupada in his lecture, he tells that even according to the medical science, every 7 years, all the cells of the body, they change. So that's like a new body. But the soul, that is still the same. Soul is eternal and it will get another body after this body. So Bhishma and Drona, what will happen to them? In the first paragraph, only Prabhupada is telling, they will get better bodies in heavenly planets because they had done some pious deeds. So Arjuna should not lament. Such a person who has this knowledge about the eternity of the soul and about the temporary nature of the body, that person is called Dhira. So Prabhupada has explained about Dhira, the definition of Dhira. A sober, a steady person, he doesn't lament because he knows about the nature of the soul and the body. And in the second paragraph of the purport, again Prabhupada is refuting the Mayavati theory. So if they say that initially everything was one impersonal lump or a mass, and then someone cut that and created different souls. So what is he saying? The spirit is not cleavable. It can't be cut. Krishna also says, Mama eva amsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Eternally, all the jivas are my amshas, my parts. It's not that they were just me and now they have become my parts. No. For Sanatan time, for eternity, they have been my parts. And the analogy given here in the purport, I think someone is unmute. Hemlata Mataji, can you please go on mute? Hemlata Mataji. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Yeah. So the analogy given, by Prabhupada here in the purport is of the sun, the moon, and the stars. So the sun and the moon are compared to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And the stars are all other jivas. So now whatever we see in the sky, the same reflection we get in the water, right? Whatever is on the top, the same thing we see at the bottom. So similarly, like sun and moon and the stars, they are all separate in the sky and we see them separate in the water. So similarly, Krishna and all the jivas, they are separate in the spiritual world also. That is why we see them separate here in the material world. It's not that they were one there and now they have been cut into pieces and they have become separate, and after liberation again they will become one with Krishna. No. Okay, so the same Mayavadi theory is refuted by Prabhupada here by this analogy. Moving on to verse number 14. Now Arjuna may give the argument that, okay, Krishna, I understand, the soul never dies, it's only the body that dies. But my relationship with Bhishma and Drona, is through their bodies. Even if the soul is eternal, my relationship will be broken. So that is the cause of lamentation. They may get another body, better body, whatever, but I will have no access to that body. So what to do then? What should I do? So Krishna speaks verse number 14. Matra sparshastu kaunteya chitoshan sukh dukhda agma payano anityas tam stitikshva bharata.
Mataji, can I read?
Yes, beta, definitely. Thank you.
Translation. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception. O section of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Purport. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magha, January to February. It is very cold at that time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge. Because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, beta. That was so sweet of you. So again, now the Arjuna's argument that my attachment is to the body and I will not have the access to the new body. What to do? So what is Krishna's reply? Tolerate. Tolerate. And why tolerate? Tamstitikshva bharata. Tamstitikshva is like just tolerate that. So here Krishna is describing what is the cause of experiencing duality in this world. Happiness, distress, defeat, victory. Why do we experience that? It's because of matra sparsh, contact of the senses with the sense objects. Matra sparsh. So Srila Prabhupada gives example of normal temperature water. Okay, water is the same. It's normal temperature. In summer, if we have to take bath with that, we will like it. But in winter, it's not liked. Water is the same, but the problem is with the skin. Skin is perceiving the water as cold and warm. So the perception of happiness and distress, it's because of the senses, which come in contact with the sense objects. So senses are conditioned due to the previous experience. Our senses keep coming in contact with the sense objects, and they keep getting some experience. And that experience, that perception is registered in our mind. And we are like, oh, if I do this, I will get this. It will bring me happiness. It will be good for me. It will be bad for me. So we always have that fear. For example, tongue tastes gulab jamun, right? With the tongue, we can taste gulab jamun. But if we have never tasted it before, we have never heard about gulab jamun before, and if somebody tells us that today in the lunch prasadam, gulab jamun is being served, will we be excited? No, right? Because we don't even know what gulab jamun is. So what should the excitement be about? But if the tongue has tasted gulab jamun, and that perception, the taste, the experience is stored in the mind, then upon hearing about gulab jamun, one will be very excited. Wow, today gulab jamun. Therefore, it's the sense perception which is the problem. No, that causes sukha and dukkha. This metal world is, it's like that only, full of dualities, happiness, distress, victory, defeat, and one has to learn to tolerate, because it's all temporary, anityas. Krishna is telling it is agma paino anityas. It's temporary, just like the summer and winter season. They come and they go. So good and bad, they will just come and go. We have to learn to tolerate them. What is good for me might be bad for the another person, because his perception is different, my perception is different. So if someone die, it's an unpleasant situation. But when someone takes birth, everyone rejoices. But Krishna says everyone who takes birth have to die. So if we have some good time, we will have bad time also. So all this in material world is temporary, and the perception of happiness and distress is due to the perception of senses and mind. So the only solution for us is we have to learn to tolerate all this. Okay, oh, time is already 8:08. I think we should stop here. We will continue next week. It's a long chapter, but it's very important chapter. So we will go slow, no problem. Anybody, if you have any questions, you can please ask now or in the next class. And if you want me to, again, I tell you, you can pause me anytime if you want me to repeat some point.